Hey, it's Nicole here. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention that in this episode, Lydia talks a lot about what I said last Sunday, and she is referring to the fact that she serves as spiritual teacher at an amazing spiritual community that has really helped me in so many ways for my own spiritual growth. That's Unity of Appleton, which is located at 1366 Appleton Road in Menasha, Wisconsin. And let me tell you, I so miss going there in person, where you're surrounded by such an open and loving community. I know someday we'll be there again, meeting physically. Someday when all the fun of this social distancing is all behind us. But until then, they are meeting virtually every Sunday morning. And as you already know from listening here, and I really don't need to tell you, but I'm going to anyways, because she is absolutely amazing. So you can currently join her live on either YouTube or Facebook every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, where she does what she does best. She talks. She talks about all things spiritual and puts a spiritual twist on everyday current life topics that are so relatable. Her Sunday mornings leave me feeling so empowered and ready to take on whatever is about to come next in my life. You can find out more about them on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or visit unityofappleton.org. You go where you grow. And for me, that's Unity of Appleton, a community for spiritual growth. Welcome to True and Unpolished, the podcast, a cuss culture production. Through this podcast, our intention is to uplift, inspire, and amuse.
Let's get authentic. Hi, everybody. Lydia Singleton here.
And Nicole Wilson.
And we want to talk about healing today. This is actually Nicole's inspiration, and she has a great blog post, blog post that's coming out this Friday. And the title is Listen, Healing is Hard. And it is a beautiful blog post. So where can they see that on Friday, Nicole?
That's on cussculture.com/blog.
Awesome. So healing, and what we're talking about, isn't physical healing. We're talking about the healing that happens as you begin to evolve and allow your soul to drive the car that is you through life. And that takes kind of unlearning, right? It takes unlearning a lot of coping strategies that happen. And when I read your blog post, Nicole, the thing that came to my mind is something that I actually shared this past Sunday. And it is about a coping strategy so when we're young, at some point we kind of lose the sense of our divinity and our oneness with God, and we begin to have fear, right? Fear is introduced through just living. And what happened for me was and I always make sure that I explain that I know that my parents were doing the very best they could with what they had, and with the tools, the emotional tools they had. And I love them, and I'm grateful for them. And things were hard. My father was a Green Beret in the Vietnam War, and that left a lot of scars, both physical and emotional and mental. And as when I was little, he was the one who was at home with me, and he adored me. I mean, just loved me, adored me. I felt loved, I felt adored. And the experience that I had from my perspective at some point, right around adolescence, right around, when I'm becoming a tween, it just stopped. And it was as if he pulled that love away, and it was super painful. And what I did was close. I closed off emotionally, and that was a coping strategy that served me well. That closing helped me to be able to navigate a very tricky situation and not be bruised to incapacity, you know? So I know that it served me well. Well, here's what happens with our coping strategies that serves us well when we're young. We take them with us. You know, they're part of us, and that closing that I did, the closing emotionally that I did, I've carried with me into adulthood and into relationships, and it, you know, causes all kinds of havoc. And I am unlearning to do that. What I realized is I, you know, have had a lot in the past few weeks, just a ton of mental noise. And that mental noise has been self judgment, you know, just self criticism. And what I realized is that I closed emotionally because I was protecting myself from my own judgment, right?
Mhm.
And it was a big realization. And it is an unlearning of that coping strategy. Nicole, do you have one that you are willing to share with us?
I have so many.
Yeah, you
It's
and me
hard to
both,
pick
sister.
one. My experience is a little different though. I don't have as many from childhood as I do. I was in a physically and emotionally abusive relationship for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I shut down. I mean, there was a point where I no longer even felt emotion.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
it was something that served me at that time, and it
yes.
took a very long time to be able to open back up and recognize that I am worthy of love.
Right. Yes, yes, yes.
There's many big ones like that, and then there's even little ones, you know, that I remember you and I had something, I don't, a disagreement about something with
Yeah,
work.
yeah,
And as we were talking it through, all of a sudden it clicked like, oh my God, like I'm guarding myself.
yes,
Like this is the way I am used to conversing because of the way I had to navigate conversations for me to not get hurt.
yes,
And I'm doing it even in a working environment.
yes, yes. And see, the thing is that, I mean, let's just be real. A lot of the conversations that we have with people in our life are surface conversations. You know, we all are kind of walking around with some guardedness, and there's so much to that. You know, that is uh, one of the things I realized is that, you know, in my own growth and in my own healing, I I was telling myself the lie that don't look too closely, Lydia. Don't look too closely at you. You're not going to like what you find, you know?
Mhm.
And the exact opposite is true, because all of these coping strategies are not who we are. And that's the thing. We mistake it for who we are because we've been doing it for so long, but it is not the truth of who we are. And those coping strategies, when we let them go, when we're able to let them go, it is, you know, what we uncover is just the vibrancy of our being. And I had all these realizations. I had a night on Friday night. I shared this last Sunday where I was having all these nightmares. I mean, it was insane. I kept waking up, and I have this little watch, you know, that tells me when I have REM sleep and all that. And I only slept for 4 hours, but over 2.5 hours of that was REM because it was just these nightmares. And it was a recurring nightmare that I've had throughout my life. So the players will be different and the circumstances will be different, but the theme is always the same. And that theme is someone, the person that I love, the person that is my partner that I'm in a relationship with, is doing something to hurt me. And they are doing it and they don't care that they're hurting me. And I'm begging them to please care, essentially. Not necessarily even stop what they're doing, but to care that they're hurting me.
Yeah.
And I, when I woke up, I knew I had the presence of mind to know that while it was like this tortured sleep where I couldn't shut my mind off and these nightmares were happening, I had the presence of mind to know that there was purpose to it and not to hide from it, but to just allow it to happen. And so when I got up, the first thing I did was go to my journal to start writing, because see, our dreams are talking to us. It's our soul trying to say, here, look at this. And it's in it, all of them are about healing. All of them are about pointing us toward a coping strategy, something that is blocking us from the experience of who we truly are. So I knew that this dream was trying to tell me something. And obviously this dream has happened. I don't know why it never occurred to me before now that this dream happens all the time. Like, I know that I have this recurring dream, but I never looked at it. I never went,
Yeah.
why would I be having the same dream? And as I said, the circumstances are always different, but the theme is the same. And so what I realized in doing this was, my dad, what he did was he stayed up all night, like, I mean, till 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. And what he did was sit in his chair and watch TV and do crossword puzzles at the same time. And as I said, he was very tortured mentally and emotionally. And I, you know, I knew that this dream was about my dad, because what happened is I realized, oh, it's showing me my first experience of someone hurting me and appearing not to care, right? Was my
Mm-hmm.
dad when I was young. And my husband said, and you know what? That's what you're doing. And I said, what? What am I doing? And he said, you go into the room, you close the door, and you watch Netflix. Like, you close off. Um, and I was like, oh my God, that is so absolutely true. And can I
Yeah.
just say that it is so important? Like, part of why I was able to really get to the bottom of what my soul was trying to point me toward is because my partner was willing to be there with me, but not just that. It was the safety of feeling like I could point out, my flaw, the thing that is
Mm-hmm.
going on, without it being weaponized against me, right? Without him using it
Yes.
later and saying, see, look what you're doing. So it's so important, isn't it, to have these partners.
Yes, to be able to be open with like and owning it. And I know, I was on a call with a client 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden I started realizing like, oh wait, I feel this way. I'm like directing you in a way from a feeling of a past learned coping mechanism, and
Oh, so
that
you
is
were like,
not true anymore.
okay, so this person was talking to you and you were
Yes.
giving them advice
Yes.
that was pointing them toward your coping strategy.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And,
Yes.
and did you realize it in real time?
I did. And I explained where I said, oh, look, like I am saying this right now. And then I went back in my history a little bit, like I
Yeah,
was in this relationship and this is how I had to deal with,
yeah,
navigating life. And what I just told you, I don't feel is true. And I
yeah,
didn't realize I didn't feel it was true until right now. And
yes,
then she was like super excited, like, oh, this is awesome. Like, good for you. And it was a great moment of just opening my eyes and recognizing like, I mean, I've been out of this relationship almost 10 years now, probably 8,
hmm,
and it still is with me, but not in a way that is necessarily bad anymore. I
yeah,
think that was a lot of my inspiration behind the blog post, is that, listen, healing is hard. It's hard to have all these learned patterns that you feel are you
right,
feel they are you,
hmm,
and you have to let go of them
yes. And
because
you
they are
pointed
no
it out,
longer serving you, and letting go of part of something that you feel is you
right?
is hard.
Yes, yeah. And you pointed it out that it actually, the thing that you think is helping you, that used to help you, this coping
Mm-hmm.
strategy, is actually the thing that you have to get rid of in order to
Yes.
get to the next place. And we
Yes.
do it, right, for our freedom. Like, these coping strategies are there to try to keep us safe. And the reality is they're keeping us in prison. And
Yes.
and we have each other. We have relationships with each other because that's where these coping strategies are brought to the light. Like, that's,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, relationships, that is where they come out, and that
Mm-hmm.
is, that's why relationships are hard. I say it all the time, that relationships, they take work, but not just work. They are going to push your buttons. They are going
Mm-hmm.
to cause these coping strategies to start. And, and then in the instance you were talking about with your client, that kind of interaction in relationship, you needed to be able to hear yourself. And in order
Yes.
for you to hear yourself, there had to be another person
Mm-hmm.
for you to talk to so that you could hear it and go, oh, actually, that's not true. And it's
Yeah.
funny because, what I realized when I was talking about these last couple of weeks with this mental noise of self-judgment, I, got mindful and I looked at them and I looked at these thoughts and these judgments, and they were judgments that I had already looked at and said, no, that's actually not true about you, Lydia, and so they were, I had already questioned them. And so healing is multi-layered, right? Like
Yes.
there are layers of healing. Like you shed one, and then there is another deeper level to get to always. As long as we breathe, we're
Mm-hmm.
becoming, we're letting these coping strategies go. And as we do, we get lighter, right?
Yes.
I say it all the time, and you said it in your blog post. What happens is you become more you. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how that's possible, but you become who you truly are, who you were born to be. And who you were born to be, who I was born to be, is a gift, right? It's a gift to the planet, to the world, to the people in your life. And it's hard, as you said, like even when a strategy is hurting us and we can feel that it's hurting us, it's often easier to keep it because
Yes.
we don't know what it's going to be like when we don't have it anymore, right? Like who will
Yes.
we be? And the fear, even if it's an unpleasant thing, it's known, right? And so we
It's
have this,
familiar.
yes, familiar, yeah. And we have this
Mm-hmm.
tendency to say, I'll just keep it, right? And
Yeah.
I think in part we do that because the feeling is we can't know that it'll be any better
Right.
when we let it go. And that's why it's so important, this multi-layered. So when you have a coping strategy, you see it and you begin to let it go. So you let it go and you then say, oh, I'm lighter, I'm freer. So now the next time a coping strategy comes up, or even the same one, you now have a history to look back at and say, no, wait, i did I did let something go and it was good, it was better on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and the more you do it, the more you realize, like, I want to let this all go. Like, let's really get down to who am I?
I know.
Because
I
you,
literally I have said to Keith, I've said to people in my life, please tell me something you don't like about me.
yeah.
Tell me some, because the other people in your life have perspective. Like they are very attuned and aware of these coping strategies because they're living
Mm-hmm.
them, and they can see them. They have distance from it. So I really do say, hey, tell me something you don't like about me, because oftentimes I think our biggest hurdle is that we don't see them. We don't see the coping strategies. They've become so much a part of who we are and how we walk around the planet that we don't see them. So the first step is being willing to see, right? Being
Mm-hmm.
willing to see them. And then, it takes a lot of self-love and self-care to say, hey, I'm going to love you no matter what. So let's look at this, and when I say that, I'm talking to me, like, Lydia, I love you. We'll look at it and it's going to be okay.
Yes. Yeah. I just had a conversation with Adam last week about my tendencies and how there's something that I need to process, and I go very inward, and he, we've been together long enough where he knows that I'm doing it, and all I have to say is that's what I'm doing, and he just lets me be until I'm ready to talk to him.
Yeah.
And then and then I explain, well, this is where my mind went, this is
Yes.
why,
Yes.
and I figured it out.
Yes.
and he was very appreciative too. He said, he called me weird. He's like, you're weird. And most people don't go into like, this is why I did what I did. And I
Yeah.
know it's not right, but this was my thought process behind it. And I like to navigate that with the people that I'm close to, because that's what gives me the better understanding.
Yes.
You have that sounding board of someone that genuinely cares about you,
Yeah. Yeah.
to just hear yourself say, what's going on, and then you hear it, and then you're able to address it, and then you're able to let it go.
Yeah. And see, and in these, interactions, and anytime, something is going on in a relationship, there is my lesson, your lesson, so we can
Mm-hmm.
be going, having this situation happen between the two of us, but our lessons are going to be different. And the
Right.
truth is, only I can know what my lesson is. You can help me to get there, maybe, but, it takes saying, okay, I'm going to own that I am a part of this, and what's mine, like what's mine to
Mm-hmm.
do, what's mine to heal. Because you really don't get past anything when all you're doing is looking at the other person and going, oh yeah, I know what you need to do. And,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that, and that is,
That's how I spent most of my relationship, my abusive relationship I was in. It was always, oh, I need to fix him, and he would always
right,
say, like, you need to fix me. It's
right,
your
right.
job to fix me.
Yes.
And so I totally put myself aside, and then it was always like, oh, well, you need to do this, you need to do this, and he never wanted to do any of this. And then
Right,
I
right.
realized I have to be the one to do my own.
Yes. And see, that's the turnaround. You would say to him, you need to do this.
Mhm.
Turn it around. No, I need to do this.
Yes.
So it's and man, being in relationships, and I don't just mean romantic, I mean friendships, being in a relationship with someone that is willing to own their stuff, you know, is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
It's so, there's so much freedom in it, because you know that they're going to own their stuff, you're going to own yours. And of course we don't get it perfectly, right?
Right.
We might have, and Nicole and I, we've been in a relationship now. What are we? We're going on 4 years, I think.
Yeah.
And our relationship has evolved and changed. And, we've had, major disagreements. We've had, I would say, two major disagreements. And those kinds of things, they either make you or break you, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we were
Yep.
either both going to own our own part of it, and get to a new place in our relationship, which we did, and it deepened. That's the great thing, is that these things that we see as problems, when we're having a problem, we tend to focus on the fact that, oh, this is bad. Problem equals bad. Well, really, problem equals really good if you can
Yeah.
own your stuff, because you're going to get to this new, deeper, greater place within yourself and within your relationship.
Yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, like the first time we had a disagreement, and after, going through the whole thing and
Yeah.
where we were afterwards, it's like, I'm okay to disagree with you anytime. Like,
Yes,
it just brings us to a more beautiful place.
that's exactly right.
Like,
And
bring it
man,
on.
and you really, I think we might have touched on this when we had the evolved friendships episode. And everybody, if you haven't heard that one, that was a conversation with Christy Sprotty, Mary Howe, and Nicole and I. And if you haven't heard that one, go listen to it. It's one of my favorites. We really,
Thank you.
really uncovered some stuff, and shared a lot about evolved friendships. And I don't know where I was going with this. I was going to say something that we talked about there, but it has completely left the building. And see, so here we go, everybody. I have this uncomfortable moment happening right now. So I am doing a podcast. And what do you do in a podcast? You talk, right? And it needs to flow, and it needs to make sense to you. And so right now there's this discomfort happening within me, and this voice saying, Lydia, you're not good enough. You're not enough. Oh no. And and the reason why I'm talking this out with you is because this is the work, right? This is the healing work. Being willing to listen to that judgment and say, no, thank you. No, that's actually not true. Even if I completely screw the pooch on this episode, I, Lydia, am enough. right?
You just gave me goosebumps. That was beautiful.
Goosebumps. Goosebumps is good. Everybody, goosebumps, I truly believe that goosebumps are, it's like your soul is celebrating. It's like, yes, this, you know? And that's
Yes.
why I love what we're doing here, because, you know, true and unpolished, you know, that is what it takes to heal. You got to be willing to look at what's true, and you got to be willing for it to be messy and for you to look messy, because it's a part of it, right?
It is that vulnerability of.
Yes. I wrote, that was one of my notes that I wrote. Like, what, because the realization was, right, I closed myself off emotionally to protect myself. And one of the things that I wrote down was, okay, you're closing to protect yourself. And what's happening is you're really closing to life, closing to essence, closing to getting, you know, there. And I just, you know, I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful for that tortured night on Friday where I had the nightmares. I'm so proud of Lydia for being willing to do it. And yeah, I mean, see, and we got to celebrate ourselves, guys. We've got to celebrate. You know, if you are a person who is willing to evolve, is willing to grow, is willing to look at your flaws, your coping strategies, like, you already are winning as a human being if you're doing that, right? Well, everybody, I am grateful for you. I am grateful for the opportunity to be able to have amazing conversations with Nicole and with the others that we have on here. And just thank you so much. Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for listening. There's some great other episodes. So if you haven't caught up yet, I think, how many episodes do we have now, Nicole?
This will be 9.
This will be number 9. Yes. And
we had 2 behind the scenes episodes before we started.
Yeah, so check it out if you haven't. Thanks for hanging with us. This is Lydia Singleton.
And Nicole Wilson.
And you've been listening to True and Unpolished, the podcast. Let's see what happens next.